Well, it's 7 o'clock, so I think we'll get this meeting underway. Welcome on behalf of the Omokoroa Residents and Ratepayers Association to this Meet the Candidates meeting, which we hold every 3 years. Just a few notices that the exits are out there and the toilets are out there, the emergency exits there and what have you. Hopefully we won't have to use them. No smoking, I think that's pretty obvious. No smoking, no vaping. We have a cameraman over there who's going to record the whole meeting on video, which will be available on our website a few days after this meeting. So just make sure that you don't say anything that you regret. It's going to be on video recording. And as far as the candidates, when you come up to speak, we ask if you can stand up so that the cameraman can see you and not be blocked by the people sitting near the front. So the order of business will be mayoral candidates first, followed by the Kaimai ward candidates, followed by the Maori ward candidates for Western Bay. Then that will be followed by the Omokoroa Community Board. After that, we'll have the Bay of Plenty Regional Council candidates and the Bay of Plenty Maori Board candidates. A request that for the speakers, there are 3 microphones along the front there, to make sure you turn it on before you speak. We do want you to use a microphone, otherwise it won't be recorded in our on our video. And to stand up when you speak, and when you finish, please turn the microphone off because we don't want to hear you muttering afterwards. Right, well, we're starting with the mayoral candidates, so we've got all the mayoral candidates who are here up there. Okay, well, the rules are you get 2 minutes to introduce yourself and tell us why we should vote for you. With 15 seconds to go, our timekeeper here, Jim, will get a tinkle on one of these 3 bells. We can pin your bells there. And if at the 2-minute mark, you'll ring them and you just stop. And if you don't stop, our cameraman will turn the microphone off and we'll keep on ringing. So, in terms of the order of speaking, we're just going to go from one end of the table to the other. I'm not telling you which end. And then we've got questions for all the candidates. Now, the questions have been, we've got them written out in advance. We're not taking questions from the audience this time because it creates a lot of delay and problems. So, when the candidates have all introduced themselves, I've got a list of questions and I'll start working through. Some of them are short, yes, no answers. Some of them require a little bit of extra explanation. So, I'll start off with asking Rodney Joyce to kick the meeting off, turn the microphone on, stand up.
Is it warming up? Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Sorry, mate. I was just at the avocado growers meeting, emergency meeting in Kaimai. I thought you're probably aware that I've been whacked over the last few days. Some of them lost 80 to 90% of their crop, so not in a good way. So anyway, I won't spend too much time on that now. That's why I was late, sorry. And I think Ken Shirley was just behind me, so he won't be far away either. I'm standing for mayor pretty much for the same reason I did 3 years ago. And that is that we need a change in direction of this council. If anything, I'm more dangerous than I was 3 years ago because I know the place a bit better now that I've been at the council for 3 years. And anyone who can't sleep and watches the council very closely will know that those 3 years I've spent a lot of time working on trying to save money and make sure it runs as an efficient beast. I'm not alone in that. It's a team sport. Anything that anyone's achieved at this council is done by the team. But trying to move the needle has certainly kept me entertained. The first thing we need is more focus at this council. Now the government's giving us a bit of a nudge in that direction, but we need to get back to basics. We need to focus on what's important, and that means getting a new CEO, and that's going to be probably one of the earliest and one of the most important decisions of the next council. So you need to think about that not just for the mayor but also for the council, because it's the council that employs the CEO. We need to do a full strategic review of the council from top to bottom. We've got that opportunity more than ever because the waters assets are being moved off into a ring-fenced corner. Now you can say whether you like the form that that's happening in, but either way, both the major political parties want that to happen. So we need an efficient council. But the second thing I wanted to mention tonight, in a very short time, we need a more open and transparent council. We need a more humble council. We need actually to talk with our community, not at them. And I think that would be a big change.
Right. Kia ora, tōna whanava. My name is Whare Brow. I hail from Whakamarama and I'm standing for Mayor. Generally because it raises the calibre of the people who are standing, and generally I wasn't happy with I wasn't happy with ensuring that my interests were represented. So I have returned home after 15 years working in Auckland. I've been home for 9 years now. We returned home to look after a grandchild, and ever since then I have vowed that I will stand in every local election. I come from the Burrell dynasty in Whakamarama. Our homestead was built in 1900. And we were there building the houses for the Sharplands. So our two homesteads, the Burrell homestead and the Faulkner homestead, are in Whakamarama. And I was admiring the bells because I went to Whakamarama school with the hand-run bell, and when we had cross-country, it was literally cross-country. What do I bring? I have more in common with the other demographics at this table. So I'm a business owner, I'm semi-retired, I am entitled and I have a voice, and I'm more than happy to share it if given the mic. For my trade, I'm a research and evaluation consultant, so I write technical reports that I often say people don't read. But my actual job title is that I'm an evaluator, which means my job is to steward the voices and views of people who use services into a technical report. From there, I get to discern the judgment, the value and merit of those services from the perspectives of those other people's views. So not just the world according to Burrell. It's a good world anyway, if you're interested. But yeah, that's what I do. So I would love to be the first Māori female Samoan Mayor of the Western Bay. Kia ora.
Good evening, I'm Margaret Murray-Benge. I've had a long time in local government, and it's time I was the leader of this council. I want to put people before politics. I came from a background of teaching, of tennis, and shifting a club, school committee, my 3 children, and I've been a long time in local government. I've got a resource management commissioner's training, and I have always believed that you've got to listen to people and act upon their wishes. There's no point coming into local government and assuming that you know everything. We need change, and I believe we need a change manager to make sure that we are the most efficient that we can possibly be. At the moment, I can't tell you that, and we've gone 3 years of too many chairman's final vote, and it should be a consensus for the CCOs that we have with 3 waters. You'll tell me that we've got amalgamation. Well, yes, we have. That 3 waters has to be reviewed, in my view, and I'm not satisfied that we've got the right answers at this stage. We need to actually make sure that our children can actually afford to live here. And a land, we are too expensive, and we have to have more land available so that we can build for the future generations who actually want to live here. It has to be affordable, and so that's why I feel very strongly that this council needs to be not only listening but acting upon the wishes of you, the people. And I can't tell you that we have had that in these last 3 years. I'm happy to work with any local government, any central government, and I thank you very much.
Tēnā koutou, good evening. My name is James Denyer. I'm the current Mayor, elected in 2022. Before that, I was elected councillor in 2019. I have a background in science, graduating with a master's degree in chemistry from Oxford University, and then spent 10 years in corporate finance in London. I lived in Katikati for 16 years, and I've been heavily involved in the local community. I'm currently chair of our Ratepayers Forest Project, which looks after 500 hectares of the Kaimai Conservation Park. I've really enjoyed my last 3 years as mayor. I worked hard getting out and about, meeting residents, community groups and volunteers. And some of the achievements I'm most proud of include the growth in Omokoroa and moving forward with the roundabout to enable safe access to State Highway 2. I'm sure you will agree with that. The new Katikati Elder Housing Units at no cost to ratepayers, and a new fit-for-purpose library at Waihi Beach. Now going forward, what are my priorities? Well, firstly, transport. TNL is well underway, but we need TNL2 to take the road all the way to here at Omokoroa. I am advocating strongly to achieve this, to achieve certainty for timing and funding for this via a regional deal. Negotiations, and those negotiations are ongoing right now. Certainty of government investment also means finally achieving a high school for Omokoroa, and enabling better and more reliable public transport. We need to make this place the town it needs to become. It also enables my next priority of housing, both for the final stages of Omokoroa and growth in Katikati and elsewhere. Quality and affordable housing is such an important part of securing our well-being, and it's vital that we facilitate this. Lastly, cost of living. Times are tough. We found some cost savings at council, including a reduction in staff numbers, and more savings are to come. I'm focused on spending smartly and prudent financial management. I have the skills, the experience, and the relationships with the community, iwi, central government and local government sector, and want to continue to serve the community as mayor with hard work and dedication to the best for you. Thank you.
Kia ora everyone. My name's John Holyoake. I live in Omokoroa. I'm top of the third green. I've found any new golf balls in my backyard. Look, I was driving home from a board meeting in Auckland today, and I was thinking about all the things that we promise and the things that we can do for you. Rodney's talked about a full review of the organisation. I've heard Don talk about ripping up the LTP and starting again. We talk about cost savings, we talk about getting back to basics, roading, infrastructure, waters and all those things. The reality is, if I'm elected mayor, I can't actually promise any of those things. Right? I get one vote. The rest of...
Can you grab the black...
Because it's on. I get one vote, the same as every other person sitting around the council table, right? So I can't actually promise any of those things. What I can do is promise that I'll advocate for those things because I agree that they are incredibly important. I also agree with Margaret that unless we're a team that works together, we won't get anything done for you. Okay? So, I was thinking about who I would vote for as I was coming home. I thought, well, if we've got all of those challenges ahead of us, I'd vote for someone that's got 25 years senior executive experience. I'd vote for someone that's got experience in governance, that understands boards, and it does not get wrapped up in politics. And that's why I voted for myself.
Evening everyone, my name is Don Thwaites, I live in Te Puna. Oops, there we go. I've lived in Te Puna for 52 years, been coming around here as a child, an 11-year-old. We used to row our boats across to Omokoroa, and Mum would come around the trailer and pick us up and take us back home, so that's how long I've been around. I finished at Te Puna School, went through Omokoroa College and then on to Massey University where I graduated with a degree and double major in accounting and in finance, and I just missed a few papers off a triple major to try and be a farm accountant and get a ag business, but that wasn't my bite to get all my ACA papers done. I came home and wondering what to do, and a big event happened in our life. My younger brother died on State Highway 2 at Te Puna Stream 41 years ago in a crash. So I certainly am passionate in roading. It's been a big part of our lives as a family. Subsequent to that death, 12 people have died between our place at Te Puna Quarry Road and Loop Road. 1 kilometre, one death every 83 metres. So I am passionate about it. 2 people died right at our intersection when I was working 80 metres away in the orchard. Rex and Dorothy Williams, childhood sweethearts from Te Puna School, married in the Te Puna Hall, were going to their 60th wedding anniversary, picnic with their family at the Quarry Park and died there. So, like I said, I'm pretty passionate about the whole roading issue. Rob's, my younger brother, is drinking fountains on the golf course out there. He was a single figure handicapper at the time of his accident. He was coming from Te Puna to the Omokoroa golf course. So that's part of my life. I've just about talked about my family too much. I've been on council a long time. I know how the beast works. Rates has been a huge issue over the years, and if I get 2 minutes as a councillor Sparrow, in a couple of minutes' time I'll pad out a bit more on rates. But for that, thanks for listening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grant Kelly. I'm running for mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grant Kelly. I'm running for mayor. Before I run out of time, I just want to go and look at my website if you get a chance, grantkelly.nz. It's got all the information about myself that you're not going to hear in 2 minutes. I earned my degree in mechanical engineering from Auckland University after serving an engineering cadetship at General Motors in Upper Hutt. I went on to a career in sales before moving to the Bay of Plenty. I've lived and worked in Te Puke for 24 years now. My 2 kids went to school in Te Puke. I was a retailer in the main street for 7 years. I've worked in other businesses in water services, kiwi fruit and manufacturing along the way as well. I was introduced to community activism back in 2007 when council proposed selling part of Jubilee Park for a new supermarket. Little old ladies who have been riled up by council decision making are a potent force and very persuasive at pulling in new recruits like me. After that, I joined community groups, Creative Te Puke, Environment Te Puke and a Cycleway Development Group, serving in governance roles. In 2010, I was asked to serve on the community board. I've been a member of the board for 15 years and your district councillor for the last 9 years. I'm a current qualified RMA commissioner and regulatory hearings panel member. The Making Good Decisions course is great training for councillors. What I've learned over the last 18 years moving up through the ranks from volunteer community group to board member to councillor is that your sphere of influence gets bigger, your decisions impact on a lot more people. You can play a more meaningful role in placemaking and hopefully improving conditions for our residents and ratepayers. Whether it's maintaining rates at an affordable level or finding more effective ways to deliver council services. That's why I feel I'm now ready to step up and take on the big job. I get on well with my fellow councillors, the council staff we interact with, the community at large. No one, no matter how good they are, can please all of the people all the time, so there are always compromises and there will always be people who think you made a bad call. But a democratically elected council is better than a row of commissioners. Thank you.
Now we move on to some questions. I'm not going to start at each end, I'm going to start in the middle and work to the end and then start at the end and work back. So everyone gets plenty of a chance to be the first to answer. So the first question will obviously be to James. In your opinion, what are the top 3 issues that the incoming council needs to address?
Thank you. I mean, my priorities I've explained the transport, housing and cost of living. So, but what's important amongst that, as others have alluded to, are things like the senior recruitment, finding the cost savings and thinking about how we can save money. Immediately though, we've got other things like local would have done well before to proceed with, and due diligence will be taking place. And the regional deal negotiation, as I said, is going on right now, and that will be signed hopefully before the end of the year. So there's some things which are top of my mind at this point. Thank you.
Do you need the question repeated? Yes.
Infrastructure that supports growth, cost savings, and as Rodney pointed out earlier, I think the organisation, once Waters moves on and we know what the role is going forward, we need to totally reorganise the organisation. I think the big challenge for us coming up next year is going to be the government mandates. I think if we think that we've had it tough so far, we're going to become a political football. with government suggesting their local government needs to change significantly. I think it's really, really important that we're ready for that, meet those challenges head on and do it to ourselves before government does it to us.
Obviously, cost of living is a huge issue facing us. We've got to get our rates back under control. We've got a current LTP that sets out a rate increase at 8% per year for the next 9 years. We're in the first of it right now. There's 9 more to follow. That can't be sustained. Families can't sustain that. So that's a biggie. Obviously, ongoing work with infrastructure, and this side of town is finally getting its attention with TNL 1 and 2 coming up. We're just about to sell my mother's house to them, so one day in July next year when they finally pay us, you can get in the queue, but there's not a long time between July and the next election, so National better get back in power to, if you want to see TNL 2, because it's running out of time.
Thank you. Yeah, my top three, obviously, and the first one is your top one, I'm sure, rates affordability. Everyone is complaining about that. The government ministers are complaining about it. The local government system improvements bill has come out that's telling us to concentrate on core services. Rates can and could come with that, so whether we like it or not, we've actually got to address that, and that means a deeper dive than we've done in the past. So obviously, everyone's already said it, a new CEO who's more inclusive, more open, a better culture for councillors and the staff themselves. And my third one is spatial planning. We nearly completed the Te Puke spatial plan. We've just announced today the spatial plans are kicking off for Te Puna, Katikati and Waihi Beach, and that's really important so that you know where your houses are going to be, what your transport issues are, how you can fix them, and you know, we don't want amalgamation forced on us, I'm sure. That's in the news quite a bit at the moment, so we really want our decisions to be made locally, by local councillors, by democratically elected councillors. We don't want them made by councillors sitting in the wooden tower over in Tauranga City. So if it goes to a referendum, I'm sure that you will all vote appropriately and retain that distinction between Western Bay and Tauranga City. Rural divide, small towns versus big cities, sprawl and growth. I think it's an easy choice. Thank you.
So, 3 priorities. I think the overarching one for the whole district is housing. It's very unaffordable. Rates playing a part in that, but just generally housing is very unaffordable. We know that growth in Omokoroa, for example, has stalled a bit because of the high school, and I think everybody here would be keen on the government giving its A and to G on the high school. You know, now that hopefully we're getting a regional deal and that will, touch wood, be part of it. I do think we need to look internally. I'm sorry I couldn't get here earlier to hand these out, but I'm available afterwards if you want to have a look. That's your head office costs of council, up 45% in the past 5 years. That's horrendous, right? We talk about adjusting for cost of living, but this is actually reality. This is from annual reports and annual plans and long-term plan. And the projection, Don's right, is truly awful, right? This is from the long-term plan that you were talking about, Don. It is from the long-term plan, sorry. You haven't done this yourself, so you know, I don't know why you're rubbishing it. And you know, it's always hard to know how you're doing versus other councils. So I've got an economist friend to actually do some benchmarking against other councils. It's not hard to spot us. We're the one on the left. Our head office costs are head and shoulders above other councils in our peer group. So, you know, there are people here that, you know, we've got the current mayor, we've got the recent CEO, and 3 councillors that between them have done 50 years. 50 years at Western Bay. If you want more of the same, don't vote for me. Okay? You know, I want change. I've been pushing for it for 3 years, and I'm keen to continue. Cheers.
I'm the same, so rates, roads, rubbish, that's what's the council's jobs, that's the land they should stand in. And, but above those priorities is the focus and the deficit within the Western Bay of Plenty is their culture. So I'm not going to infer that they don't have integrity or competence as councillors, but based on the numbers of the 50 years, based on the numbers of people who have been re-elected, experience has not led to solutions. So I think you need to turf them out and get you some new players at the board. Again, I'm the only one around the table on this board who hasn't been involved with the show that is with the Western Bay of Plenty. And I would like to bring in a new flavour and a new pace and direction. When it comes to fixing the culture of the board, what you're saying is you need members who will uphold the integrity and the competence that you're expected. So looking for who to blame for that process and why it didn't work isn't going to give the ratepayers the solutions that they're looking for, but I will. Thanks.
Well, I think that local government has become a bureaucratic bungling machine. We will make it difficult for you and we will cost you as much as we possibly can because that's been the culture of the council. I'm not in the leadership. I want the leadership because I want to change how we work. I want the people to come first and to not power. And so what does that mean? It means that you are the most important people in the community and you must have a say. We need a change manager to make sure that our council has got the people in the right place and that we are as efficient as we possibly can be. That hasn't happened before and it's time it did, but it will only happen with new leadership. I'm not going to talk about people's inexperience or having to cope with people who don't know what they're doing, but I can tell you that is the number one thing of this council. We've got to improve our performance. We want to make it affordable for people to live here. I lived on the banks of the Ngāmuahini River. I know state highways like the back of my hand. So roading will always be a major issue, like the right-hand turn into Right Road, like the school that's needed here for Omokoroa. And you must have a relationship and work with central government plus your local colleagues and make sure that your voice is heard. So more land available for affordable housing, more people to make decisions that are in your interests. So I believe that you need a decent, conservative, sensible, common sense leader who actually cares.
All right, that's question one. Now we move on to question two. Rates are a major issue for Western Bay of Plenty community. So what we want to know is, are you in favour of a rates cap? And if so, what should the cap be? So we'll start with, this time with, I think, we'll start with Don, most experienced councillor here.
No, not quite. I'm going to pitch me by half a turn.
On the Western Bay.
No, I'm still pitching me by half a turn. I came in the by-election. Right, rates, big question. Hey, I've actually got physical copies here of rates demands. My grandparents' house in Wanganui that I visited as a kid. I was born in Wanganui 60 years ago. Wanganui are the pin-up children of rates this year, 2.2% increase. Christopher Luxon quotes them, Winston Peters quoted them, David Seymour quotes them, they are great. That house in Wanganui is valued at $560,000. They pay more rates than $1 million house in Hayden Place in Omokoroa. That is my go-to. Tikawiti, $340,000 capital valuation, they pay more rates than a $1 million house in Omokoroa. 490 in either Narrawahia or Huntly, take your pick, in the Waikato district, 490 capital valuation, they pay more rates than $1 million property in Omokoroa. So getting back to Wanganui, when I investigated, I see one of their candidates standing that said, oh, but we ran a deficit budget this year to achieve 2.2, and I thought, well, he's toast, he's not going to get elected because he told the truth. And so I went back and I actually evaluated their meeting when they set their annual plan, and they deliberately hoiked down the increase to run a deliberate deficit to achieve a 2.2. So obviously that mayor and a majority of councillors wanted to get re-elected. Hamilton City has run deficit budgets for 18 of the past 20 years, up to the last 2 years when now they're facing double-digit increase. So numbers are numbers, sure, but Hamilton has got glamour kids of why local water has done well now, because they need a new $500 million wastewater plant, and guess who they've gone to? The government, and said, help us out, when they've run 18 deficit budgets back to back to back. My mother-in-law lived in Hamilton. I used to look at a rate demand. I thought, you don't even pay rates. I'm probably exceeding far longer than I'm allowed to speak, but John's not shutting me down just yet. So, like I said, rates, caps, all well and good, but look behind the numbers and look. And if you want to come up after the meeting, these are printed out. I bought them online. You can look at Piccawilly and see what they pay. You go and buy a $340,000 house in Piccawilly and you'll be paying more rates than you do if you live here in a $1 million house. Anyway, far too much talk for me. Oh,
Did you answer the question?
of course I do. I want to rewrite the long-term plan to get a 4% maximum. We've got to get closer to inflation. So obviously I do want to do it. But this sign a pledge and rah, and then deliver what you're possibly going to face. If you leave all the projects in the long-term plan, you cannot get down under 4%. It's as simple as that. People dispute it. It's not inefficiency at the head office like Rodney talked about, not at all. We delivered $230 million of expense last year. If anything, we had not enough accountants. And
What's
that's,
your rates cap going to be? I think you've had some time, John.
well, if you really think me saying a rates cap, you're going for the wrong person if you think of course I support it, but...
Right. Next, we'll have Grant tell us whether you think there should be a rates cap and if so, how much?
How much time have we got?
Well, I've been a bit flexible on answering these questions, but we'd hope that you keep it within 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I've already talked about rates and we do need to get on top of that, but obviously the government has been talking about imposing a rate as part of the question. So a few of the mayors around the country have been suggesting 5% as a reasonable rates cap. The Taxpayers Union have talked about keeping rates to the CPI inflation. I couldn't sign their pledge because I don't think that is a realistic goal. Council always uses the local government cost index, which is produced by Burl every year, based on a basket of indexes that affect local government, like construction and contracting, and there's just a whole range of things rather than just straight CPI, and they're more appropriate for local government. So that normally runs a little bit higher than CPI. Over the period over the last 3 years, where our rates have actually increased cumulatively at 32.4%, that local government cost index and CPI both ran extremely high compared to historical trends. It is trending downwards now, so that's positive for the future. But in terms of local government New Zealand, they've been approached by, well, not local government New Zealand, but the government has actually appointed a working party to look into it. So one of the members of that is the former president or chair of local government New Zealand, Lawrence Yule. So I'm not quite sure what that says, but I guess 5% might be irrelevant. We can't account for is unfunded government mandates. We also can't account for regional deal commitments. And if we do a rates review, that will also rearrange where rates fall. Also, amalgamation, we know that Tauranga City rates at much higher rates than us for certain properties.
I think you've answered the question.
So it's almost impossible to set a specific number.
Okay. Rodney. Keep to the
I will
question.
try, a little harder than some. Apparently, according to Don, rates are fine. I don't think they are. I've signed the pledge. I think we can do better than rates cap. I think the government will probably set one somewhere around CPI or CPI plus 2. I think we can do better than that. But we have to be focused on it, and we have to be clear and talk with you about it, because it will take some hard choices about what the council does for you. And so the community needs to be involved in that discussion as well. So yeah, the rates cap, we should be able to beat a rates cap, any rates cap the government sets. But yeah, you've got to tell us what you want and what you don't want, and then we can achieve that for you.
I'm known for I didn't sign the pledge. I don't pledge to keep rates as they are. In a country where there are 6 million animals who are bred solely for dairy production, butter is $9. So when you can get that under control, then you might want to ask. Then you might be able to ask to have your rates. It's just unrealistic to say that we could kill it.
Well, we're not in the export business, so I don't have to worry about what price of butter is overseas. But what I can tell you is, if I'm your leader, I will pledge that we will go for the rate of inflation. And if we have to, any extras, we'll come back to you and make sure that you understand where we're at and why we're there and whether you approve or not. The other thing we need to do is to make sure that when we have the change manager, that what we put into the contract, we actually ask what we expect from our council staff. Nobody's done that before, but I promise you that's what we will do this time, so that the councillors are in control and not the staff.
It seems that rates cap is coming whether we like it or not, so frankly our opinion on that is not particularly relevant. I think we'd all like to get it down somewhere near inflation, as Grant has pointed out, which inflation rate. The inflation rate for local government is vastly different from the inflation rate for you, which you spend money on food and that kind of stuff. We spend on concrete and building bridges, so they are different. Whatever rate is, whatever cap is chosen, we'll have to have a certain amount of flexibility. Things happen unexpectedly. You might get a severe weather event. You need to have the flexibility there. I understand where rates caps are in Australia. More than half the councils there seek exemptions every year. That doesn't seem very. You do have to be careful about creating an infrastructure deficit. So I'm happy to try and get down as close to an inflation rate as possible. But as Rodney also said, there are tough choices. We can't achieve everything we want to, and so there'll be tough conversations about what we can and cannot afford. And I'm willing to have those conversations. Thank you.
Okay, before we talk about inflation and rate caps, we need to reduce how much has been spent, right? And as James has pointed out, the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we turn off particular services. We've been talking for quite a while now about getting back to core. People talk about roading, water and infrastructure, okay? What about libraries? What about swimming pools? What about sports grounds? Everyone's going to have a different view on those things. We need to set our priorities with you. We need to agree what core means and what we're going to deliver over the next 3 years. If you want to save money, you've got to cut services. Once you cut services, then you can look at the structure within the office, okay? You can't cut staff until you cut services. There aren't a whole lot of people sitting around doing nothing, okay? So let's get down to a reasonable rate of expenditure. That will reduce the rates. Then we can look at the increases on an annual basis. I agree, they need to be CPI, they need to be adjusted to inflation. If we are any less than that, we are going backwards with the quality of our assets, we're going backwards on our maintenance, and we're going backwards on the services that we've agreed with you.
Right, thank you. That gets rid of question number 2. Third question. Water's done well. That's been very controversial for this council. What is your view on partnering with Tauranga City Council to deliver 3 waters? I think we'll start with Rodney this time.
This is a tough one because the government has skewed the pitch against us. If we were left to our own devices, and we have been left to our own devices for a while, I think our water assets are actually quite good. We do face a lot of renewals. The council came into being in 1989. The Tapuki wastewater treatment plant was built in the old borough days. We have 250 kilometres of asbestos pipes that won't last forever, are quite safe until they start flaking, and then obviously they have to be replaced in a hurry. So there are genuine costs there. What's changed is that both the previous government and this government is determined they want bigger outfits doing it. So how have they made us do this? Because previously it was compulsory, national policy wouldn't be, but it's a bit of a Henry Ford choice, right? You can have any water company you like as long as it's black. And that is because they're basically completely skewed the financing. So we stay as we are, for example, you're in Omokoroa, you know how the place is growing, has been growing. Right? A huge chunk of that growth dividend comes to us as council. If we stay on our own, we're not allowed to count that income in our debt ratios because we're too small according to the government. So basically the government has skewed it completely. Tauranga is not the ideal partner. I would like to see us with more partners, and I think it will go that way. But it's still better to be partnered with Tauranga. Where does your wastewater go? To Tauranga. Where does the water for Tauranga come from? The Waiari in the east. We're already doing things with Tauranga, and it's better to be at the table with a voice rather than a customer on the outside, particularly since the government has completely skewed the pitch. So Any idea that we, with 15,000 or so connections, can go alone, I'm sorry, the government has basically made that impossible, on purpose.
I echo the sentiments of Rodney and take the focus on whatever the configuration of the water service. It's about ensuring that the alignment between the relationships around that. So if we are focused on an efficient and community-driven model within it, because you can focus on the overarching structure of it, but without, as Rodney said, without ensuring that communities have a part in how it lands on the ground, we're going to have a system that's bigger than we can control, and I think it's really important. So people haven't mentioned the role of iwi, so those people who have different statutory relationships to the configuration of our water, they're really, really important too, and I'd like to work in a partnership approach with all those involved. Thank you.
I see it slightly differently, because at the end of the day, whatever happens, you will do the paying. The CCOs means that you don't have a say. We don't have a say. And when we decided that we could do it in-house, it was a divided vote, and the mayor decided we would go for a CCO. We will hit a debt level in a few years' time, but it's just a small hump. Tauranga City has got massive debts, and they are looking for someone to share that debt problem with. So you can blame the government, and we have maintained our water supplies and our sewage systems in good order. So I'm not satisfied that the CCO is the answer for our council. And if I'm your leader, I want to make sure that our councils review that decision and are comfortable with whatever we decide to do. Because at the end of the day, as I said, you will do the paying, and I don't use the excuse that the government has got the hold of us and trying to choke us on the issue. Successive governments have been working on this for some time. I don't accept that it should be co-governance, because you, the people, are the ratepayers who have to do the paying. It's your voice that counts and nobody else's in this issue. So we need to go for the best scheme that suits our community best of all. And I'm not satisfied that we're there yet.
Like Rodney, I support like what is done well with a multi-council CCO, and the reason for that is going to be a lot less costly for you. The operational efficiencies, which people seem to be caught up on, are actually quite modest. They're about 1.5% of operating and capital costs. The reduction in costs, though, for you, is about efficient financing structures. That will lead to a yearly saving for each ratepayer of around $1,300 per year within about 10 years. So if you're keen to save or reduce rate rises and save money for you, then there's no way you would try to keep it in-house, because you'd have to have very large rate rises year on year for a number of years. So it's more efficient this way. We do still keep control. It's called a council control organisation for a reason. We will be shareholders, and we can set the direction for the council control for the water company, and I'm looking forward to working in partnership with Tauranga, because we do such a lot with them in the water space already, from contracts, water supply, water disposal, etc. So looking forward to that, and it'll be more efficient for you. Thank you.
I having to agree with everything that's already been said. But we are already joined up with Tauranga in this aspect of our business, right? We're connected as a pipe, we share maintenance contracts, we share databases, we do a whole lot of work together. It's already working really, really efficiently from that perspective. As James has pointed out, I support it. I definitely support local water done well, and I support partnering with Tauranga City. The costs will be lower. Now, let's be clear about that. That doesn't mean the costs won't go up, but what it means is they won't go up as much as they would if Western Bay carried on by themselves. So yes, I support anything that's going to bring cost savings and efficiencies to delivery.
Taking a slightly different slant, like you'd expect from Don. 15 years ago, a young fellow called Gary Webber joined me at council, and I looked at the model of how we did our charging of water and wastewater, and I said, this is unsustainable. Back then, we had 5 different wastewater charges. Each settlement, each town had their own charge. Wade Beach had a charge, Katikati had a charge, Omokoroa had a charge, Te Puke had a charge, and Makatu eventually. So, that was unsustainable. It took about 8 years to catch up. What we did was amalgamate all the projects, all of them together. Gary and I led the charge on that big time. CEO at the time said, can't be done, Don. CFOs at the time said, can't be done. We just lobbied and lobbied and lobbied. We had 3 different water charges throughout the district, the Western, the Central that we're on, and Eastern, and each of them had their own separate volumetric charges. Talk about a waste of time. We pushed them all together. Wasn't happy in Katikati and Te Puke because they went up a bit, and Omokoroa and Waihi Beach certainly benefited initially going down, but guess what? Te Puke now is facing the biggest ever contract in Western Bay's history to rebuild a complete wastewater system. Katikati outfall will ultimately need replaced, and that's another big project. Tasmania are the pin-up child, 29 councils in Tasmania. Everybody in Tasmania pays exactly the same for water, exactly the same for wastewater. Tas water, man, that would be my goal. The whole of the Bay of Plenty pay exactly the same. One day maybe we could be as smart as the Aussies because they've got the jump on us. And one by one, in those last 15 years, council after council after council followed our lead on amalgamating. Taupo was one of the last to change. They had 18 different water charges. The highest, the rural scheme was paying $2,000 property. Taupo Township was paying $400. They just flattened it out. Everyone pays $800. There's winners and losers, but that's how it goes. So I've said doing too much. But that's, so local water done well. It's just Mark II of what Gary and I did 15 years ago. So I was actually quite flattered by the whole system.
Yeah, I'm sure you're well aware who voted for what. I did vote to go with the multi-council CTO purely for the savings and efficiencies benefit. I wasn't enthralled about getting into bed with TCC, but like Rodney said, we were literally left with no option but to join the TCC. We did have interest from TCTC, and we learned pretty quickly, but actually very late in the piece. We should have known much earlier, to be honest, that that was not an option for our local Tanga Whenua to partner up with a council that's affiliated to Hauraki Iwi. And so unfortunately they're out on a limb. We could have had a benefit of scale partnering with them. Certainly I do agree the savings and efficiencies are there from joined up staff members, from bulk buying, from joint contracts, I'm constantly looking at the overseas examples, Tasmanian water, Scottish water, and some of the other examples around the world where it's put into public ownership into bigger single entities, and the savings do come through. Privatisation is definitely off the table. That is when things start going wrong and you do start paying through the nose. The DIO's criteria was based on our long-term planning, and that essentially is why we couldn't go with an in-house business unit or the status quo, because we simply didn't meet the criteria. The debt projections in our long-term plan were very ambitious and were a significant driver in why that was not viable. Our debt is actually projected to rise, then fall back below the year 1 starting point by about year 8, whereas TCC's debt will virtually double to $1.5 billion in year 8. So that is the biggest concern about getting into bed with TCC. We have had indications from our eastern neighbours, Rotorua, Whakatane, Poriki, Kawerau, that are in much better position, so I think they want to stick to themselves. But they will review their options in 3 years' time, and that may well mean that we can bring in some more council partners, which, as I said, will be very beneficial. Our statement of expectation in setting up the multi-council CCO from our point of view to the CCO, from Western Bay's point of view to the CCO, is one of our most important decisions that we have to make before it is established, before the start date of 1st of July 2027, and appointing the most appropriate directors that we can, that we have influence over, is also one of our most crucial early decisions. So yes, I am concerned about joining up with TCC, but like I say, we were forced into it.
Thanks, Grant. Now, the final question. As part of this year's voting, there's a referendum on Maori wards, and everyone has a voting paper and has to say whether or not they're in favour or not in favour of continuing with the Maori ward. So I'm not going to ask each of these speakers to speak to it. I'm just going to put it straight. You're going to put your hand up, just like you do at a council meeting when you vote. If you're in favour of continuing with the Maori ward, put your hand up. So everyone can just see who's for it. If you're not in favour of continuing with the Maori ward, or keeping Maori ward, put your hand up. Alright? So we can all see who's in favour and who's not. So that concludes the mayoral part of this evening. So they can resume their seats, and the next one up we want the Kaimai ward councillors. And I think there's a couple of mayoral candidates who are also standing for the Kaimai ward, so they can remain seated. Thank
Yeah.
Right, now moving on to the Kaimai ward councillors. 8. And you each get. Can't hear you. Oh, Gary, am I?
Yep.
Here now, okay. Kaimai ward councillors, we've got 8 of them here. You get 2 minutes to tell us who you are and why we should vote for you. Then we've got some questions for you. So I'll start with this end with Tracy. And then work our way down. Just wait for the microphone and make sure it's switched on. And when you finish, make sure you hand it to the next person. That's on.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tracy Cox-Ed and I'm a current Kaimai ward councillor, first termer. So it's been quite a ride, but I'll come back to that in a minute. A bit about me. My background is in finance, investment and investment planning, retirement planning. So I have owned my own investment business, which I established with 2 other people and built it from the ground up. We built that to American standard, basically, so one of the best financial planning businesses in New Zealand, if not the best. Still going. I left that a while ago and went back to my corporate life in Wellington. So whilst living here, I was commuting. And my corporate life in Wellington was in banking, so I was running the private banking team for the Central North Island for ANZ. And part of the leadership team there, I would have employed probably in excess of 100 people in my time in banking, and so know a little bit about HR and what not to do. But going back to my first term in council and the ride that it's been, so we walked in and we had 3 warders to deal with, and there was obviously a lot of controversy around that, and understandably. Then we had a vote on exiting local government New Zealand, and with the help with some of my friends, we were able to get that through and exit local government New Zealand, which I was personally thrilled about. We've had the fluoride debate, and that's been very heated at times. There's not a darn thing we can do about that. That is a government diktat. And we would be fined $200,000 and $10,000 a day if we did not abide by the ruling. Absolutely appalling. We've had Māori ward vote twice. We've had managed retreat raise its ugly head. Local would have done well we've had that for the last 12 months. Amalgamation, of course, got mooted at the same time, terribly unhelpful and not at all productive. That's me. Thank you.
My name is Murray Granger and I'm standing for re-election again in the council. This will be my 3rd term. I started off in the community board after getting voted there after we led the charge to stop the previous council, well, a previous council, selling reserve land in Omokoroa. A few of us got together and organised a protest about that, and the settlers all packed it out, and we got the council to change their minds about selling the reserve land. I then got involved in the community board and then went on to be councillor. My governance experience comes from running my own successful business and then finally being a director of IT for a large UK charity. And obviously around the council table for the last few years. I've got a keen eye for detail and a head for figures, so I can understand the various huge amounts of paper that come across our desks as councillors. I've got a postgraduate diploma in public health engineering, which is a qualification in subjects that councils deal with, namely water, stormwater, wastewater, refuse disposal, and all those sorts of things. So I understand all those things, and I'm a qualified chair to hold resource committee hearing, council hearings. So I understand the sort of issues that come across the council table. Top priority for the new council obviously is recruitment of a new CEO, because that's a critical role in the council. And the CEO is the only person that the council employs. So the council, that's the only person that the council has any say on who sits in the office here. I don't really support amalgamation with Tauranga City. I'm yet to be convinced that the local water's done well is going to be as efficient as they say, and that we're going to get all the savings that are promised. I stand on my record of service and hand over the mic.
Thanks, Murray. Again, Margaret Murray Bench. I moved to Tauranga over 20 years ago when I married Thomas Douglas Bench, and we lived on the banks of the Ngāmoehini River. And after a year, I said, Dougie, these hill people are being walked over. I think I should run. And I've been on Western Bay since then. Working with the community, that's where I learned by trade when I came up here, understanding you needed a right-hand turn onto Ngāmoehini, onto the school camp at the top, making sure that we got the bridge over McLaren Falls. And when it was open, the staff gave me a photo of the bridge. I'll have it tomorrow night up at Kaimai. But I've been on council now since 2004. And as a Kaimai ward councillor, having moved to Bethlehem after Dougie got sick, and we couldn't stay where we were. And so I'm closer now to any part of the Western Bay of Plenty than I ever was, living in the heart of the Kaimai ward up on the banks of the Ngāmoehini River. So that's a long time ago. The issues are the same. I agree with Murray, the water done well. The new council has got to review that and make sure they are comfortable with the decision. Otherwise, make sure that we do something different. I said I'm opposed to Maori wards. That's because I'm equal to anyone I meet in the community, and they're equal to me. And it's democracy. And so I hold strongly to that. But if there is a Maori ward, I'll work freely and openly with whoever is elected, because that's the role of any good councillor. So I look forward to continuing being part of the Western Bay of Plenty district. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Chris Dever, and I'm the new boy. So I come from a rural background in Wairau actually, but not just Wairau, the Wairau across in Hawke's Bay. I've had several roles working around New Zealand, mostly in executive positions, both within the private sector and in government. I've lived in Omokoroa for 8 years. I've lived in the Kaimai ward for 8 years now. I've lived in Omokoroa for about 6 years, and I live here with my wife, Nancy. Some of you will already know. I'm sort of well established, I guess, in the community, in that I'm a marriage celebrant. I'm a justice of the peace. I'm an active Rotarian, the MC for the Anzac Day parades. I've got good links into community organisations, and I'm the current chair of the Omokoroa Community Board. I must say that being the chair of the Omokoroa Community Board at least prepares me in some way for the sorts of way that local body works. I've had good support from a couple of councillors in that role and others, and I sort of feel prepared, that's prepared me well for a new challenge. Interestingly, I'm one of the 2 candidates from Omokoroa, and I know this is probably a bit perhaps controversial, but you know, if Omokoroa is to have a strong voice at the council table, then you need to vote for Murray or myself. Why am I standing? Except for Tracy, the existing councillors have all done 9 years, at least 9 years. We have rates skyrocketed, huge budget deficit. The council's low trust in the council and councillors, and it's time for a change.
Thank you. My name's Drew Cowley. I grew up in Cambridge Road, when it used to actually be not part of Tauranga. I went to Green Park Primary School, Tauranga Intermediate, Boys College, and then off to Waikato University. I've spent my corporate career in procurement, contract management, commercial business development, and that sort of area. I have a proven track record of successfully managing diverse projects with a focus not only on the business outcome, but the people outcome. My extensive involvement in community advocacy has really opened my eyes to actually listen to people, because that's important. And I've heard it being mentioned by a number of the other people here who have talked about saying, it's your decision, you've got to tell us, The problem is they keep telling us that, but they're not coming out and asking us that. They're not getting into the communities and asking. Some of our people say that you have to live in an area to represent them and be their advocate. I disagree. If you're the Kaimai ward, you represent Kaimai ward, but you represent the Western Bay of Plenty District Council. So if there's somebody from one of the other wards and then they need support, we give support there as well. I'm dedicated to building proactive, productive relationships with all in the community and driving change and contribute to bring a brighter future to us all, not just individual areas. I am new, as in the sense of being a councillor, but I'm not new to dealing with councils. I've spent years, both in my professional career and in my private career, dealing with councils, and I think our council has become too comfortable with where they sit, and we need to shake it up, and we need to shake it up for us. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Graham Alvin. I just want to say thanks very much for you all coming out tonight. I mean, I was coming up through here and I was really struggling through the fluff and the smoke and the mirrors, and I really appreciate your contributions keeping democracy alive, and we all sitting up here need to be grateful for that. I'm a first-time candidate, so this is new for me too. I'm very much a local boy. I grew up in the community, and Tikuna is very much my Turanga Waiwai. I've got a deep history in the community as a result of that. Look, I hope you've read my bio. That gives you a bit of background as to who I am. I do hope you read it. It took such a long time to craft all those words. It takes ages and ages. You've got to be careful about making sure you tell the truth and all that sort of thing, because there's a bit of economy in that, in the government sector, but I can tell you mine's true. The other thing you can do is Google me. Google me. There's a whole lot of stuff on there. Most of it's true. Google's all true. And the other thing you can do too is ask around. Ask people around. And I think you'll be told I'm not afraid to stand up and for issues. I don't back down that easily. I don't shy the tide for issues. Don't like smoke and mirrors. I actually own my own stuff-ups too, and there's a long list of them. I don't profess any level of perfection. I've got a sense of humour that may not be obvious, and I'm a passionate local. Passionate long-term local. I've got a long legal career that's sort of I'm winding out of. I've had a lot of governance experience, and I'm currently on the Western Bay of Plenty PHO. If you want to be in a troubled area, go into the area of health. and I've had a bit of CCO, local governance experience. So good luck in your voting choices, and thanks for coming.
My name is Kaimai. I have chosen to stand in the general ward to exhibit the need for all of us, whoever our ancestors are or where we come from, to utilise our diversity and to bring our shared understanding, innovation and transformational change where necessary. Despite being of Māori descent, my choice to stand in the general electorate reflects my values and my belief that all people should be treated equally regardless of where we come from. I have governance training. I'm an accredited commissioner. I was the independent chair for the Te Riko West Development, which was one of the biggest urban developments, building up to 4,000 homes. I'm also a truck driver. I'm currently a bus driver. So I get to take all our little precious little people to school and make sure they return home to you. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I believe I have the governance experience, integrity, grit, and common sense to make good decisions. Pertinent to our community, I have an in-depth practical understanding of the RMA. With this in mind, I am open to seeking expert advice to ensure clarity is there in my decisions for us in our community. I'm transparent, trustworthy, and honest. All right. It always seems to just disappear when you're up here. But anyway, thank you for listening with your ears, mind and heart. My name is Destiny, and I am the Destiny for the Kaimai ward. A vote for me is a vote for fresh, new energy in the Western Bay County District.
Right. You've probably heard enough from me already, but let's talk about three things: schools, rates, and then cutting up the rate pipe. School, I read today about the need for a college at Omokoroa number 1 school on point that's over 100 years old. Omokoroa number 2 school started its life where Omokoroa Hall is now in 1929. It's got a centennial coming up. It moved to the point in 1959. Those two schools in Whakamaramara struggled to keep up with Kaimai School that was opened in 2019, just 6 years ago. 2021 they added year 7 to that. 2022 they added year 8. So if you expect a college at at Omokoroa, sorry about that, we go to my college. If Eric Stanford ever built a college here, while the growth in Tauranga at the other side, you'd be nuts. They're about to, you've got to build houses. If you want to build houses, you've got to have wastewater. We aren't building a new pipeline to Tipuna or Plums Point anytime soon. Tauranga are heading south towards Tauriko. So if you take Taumata School, Tauriko School, Kaimai School, Pies Park, Oropi, you'd have, if those kids all went to that school, you'd have the biggest secondary school in the whole Bay of Plenty alone. So like I said, once TNL1 opens, the kids from Omokoroa are going to fly into town to get to school. Rates. The reason I talked about selling this is just to highlight the differential Tauranga City put on commercial and industrial 2 times. So if you adopted the Tauranga rating system, all of those businesses in the Omokoroa village, their rates would double overnight. All the people in the industrial zone down by the transport company, their rates would go up 4 times. The chipboard factory in Tauriko, classic example, 1.5 million in rates a year they're paying this year to Tauranga City. If that building, if that capital value was in the Rangoon Business Park in the Western Bay, we would charge them 340,000. So I didn't get to how they cut the way out, so I'll try and do that too. So,
right, thank you for that. Just to remind you that, well, I've only got one mayor. We actually have 3 Kaimai ward councillors, so you'll be voting for 3, not 1. Yeah, so just remember that. We'll just move on to some questions. That's where it gets more interesting. What do you see as the specific Kaimai ward issues that the incoming council needs to address? We'll start with Drew.
I had a suspicion he'd pick me. I think one of the main things that we need to look at in our area is our ageing infrastructure. It's one of the priorities for our area. Obviously, you've heard a lot about the TNL and all that sort of thing. You know, TNL number 2, the funding actual proposal hasn't yet actually gone ahead. So, and it's been alluded to, that could change. We can't keep relying on those things. We need to stay focused on what we can do. Obviously, there is the 3 waters, or waters done well, that we need to focus on, but it's one of those things. But one of the biggest other areas, I think, in the Kaimai ward is actually security. One of the biggest issues around here, you know, there's been a lot of good work done up on the Kaimai side, 29, they've got some good cameras up there, it's reduced it, but we also need to look at it in this area. So really, this infrastructure that we need to look at, still housing affordability and security for our communities. We go that way.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Look, one of the things that I think is quite difficult in the Kaimai ward is really the collision between this community as an urban community and the large rural community that's out there. The projected growth of Omokoroa has it as the biggest urban community in the Western Bay in about 15 years' time. And one of the things that concerns me, particularly around rating, is how to manage the respective interests of both those communities. I heard something the other day which said a structure for growing the rate base is to increase urban development, drive capital values, so you can drive a rate increase. Now, if you live out in this sort of area, you've got to be concerned about growth for growth's sake. So I think growth for growth's sake is an issue. The other thing I think that's important is maintaining a unified community. I'm not interested in people saying they represent Omokoroa or they represent Waikakamukau. The issue here is we've got to work together to get the best for our community.
Climate change is an issue that is both global and local urgency. Our decisions we make today will have a huge impact on tomorrow and that our future generations will inherit. I believe in an approach that meets the effects of climate change head-on with significant investment necessary to avoid exorbitant financial strains on our infrastructure. The most important for my ward is the rapid population growth, which places pressure on existing infrastructure like transport and stormwater, and the challenge of alleviating the impacts of climate change.
Obviously, roading is vital to the whole ward. State Highway 2, like you said, we're waiting for the funding for Stage 2. That would be a key state. But we've also got State Highway 29, which is a vital part of the Kaimai ward as well, flowing up into the Kaimais. There is $3 billion worth of work projected there in the next 20 to 30 years with the Tauriko bypass, the Oropi to Tauriko joining up, the whole interchange exactly where the council office is now. So that's key. Obviously spatial planning as well. Tauranga is right hard against the boundary all the way around our ward, whether you follow it from Welcome Bay, Ohaui, Oropi, Pies Park. It's virtually kissing right up against it. The only way Tauranga can grow is either into Tumu and get over those issues I've got down there of land access, or it has to grow into Tauranga, into Western Bay. So that's a key part. That's that spatial planning exercise, whether it's lifestyle development, whether it's transferred through into swap land, or sorry, not swap, just hand over land to Tauranga, because it's all about wastewater. I've said it before.
I know the question was meant to be specific. Can you hear me all right? Oh, yeah, that's right, the ice cream. I keep forgetting about that. Specific to the area, but generally speaking, I am concerned about the upcoming local water done well CCO. I did not vote in favour of that, and I think that will we will have to have some serious scrutiny around those numbers, and also the non-financial things that were a concern for me. The other thing is the regional deal, which we've only just had highlighted recently, and how that plays out. And I already have some red flags around that. So that's just generally. Specifically, I actually think one of the biggest problems we have is the congestion on our roads, and that's not going away anytime fast. I mean, the TNL stage 1 is going to finish in 2027, I think, and then we're at least another 10 years away from it extending all the way to Omokoroa, and we are classic at building the houses before we have the appropriate infrastructure, and for me that's a real issue. It was only Margaret and I that actually voted against the medium density standards out here in Omokoroa, and I hope we don't see it coming to fore, as I am concerned about that as well. Thank you.
For the Kaimai Ward, obviously we'd like to see a school in Omokoroa, and I take Don's point on that one, that it may not get high enough up the government's schedules, but they want houses. We need houses for our area. We've got all the land here, it's all wind zoned, wind density, but parents won't come if there's no school for the kids to go to. Obviously the spatial plan for the Tapuna Minden area is a very big issue coming up. That needs to be thought through very, very carefully. We have to listen to what people in the area want to tell us and plan accordingly. And the last one is being alluded to, the urban-rural divide, and that's why I fought very, very hard to get a community board, extend or get rid of the Omokoroa community board as it was, and extend it to the whole of Kaimai ward with the subdivisions. So there's still people from Omokoroa on it, but we have representation from the two communities up in the hills, so that the whole of the board is covered by a community board, so that the council can listen to community concerns. Thank you.
Well, half as good as being a councillor and representing the whole of the ward and the whole of the district. You can't stand for this council and expect that you can only be representing the community board. I lived at the banks of the Ngāmoahini River, which is down the hill from the Kaimai school on the way to Hamilton. And it is the key to the whole of the Western Bay. State Highway 29 and State Highway 2. Western Bay has those two in the Kaimai ward. And so you cannot look at each one and not know that there's work to be done on them. For the people up in the Kaimais, and I disagree, there's no reason why urban and rural can't work together. I've done it for so long and I'm happy to keep pushing for it. But the intersections up at the top of the Kaimais, they need to be able to get on and off that highway safely. For the State Highway 2, it was meant to be 4 lanes by 2015. The last government took it off the 10-year plan. And we cannot live with that sort of incompetence coming from central government. So, under my leadership, and under the Kaimai ward, there is no way I'll sit back and watch us be walked over again. It's happened before, and I'm determined that it won't happen for this local community ever again. We have to put up with the nonsense that comes from central government when they have a change, and we've got to make sure that whatever is committed from central government is followed through by the following one. Thank you.
I'll give you two things. First of all, we do have to look at this as a Western Bay, a plenty-wide question. It's not just what's going to happen in Omokoroa, or what's going to happen in Tapuna, or what's going to happen in Oropi. We do have to look at these things on a wide basis. The two things for me are establishing trust with the communities. I think council's lost a lot of trust with the communities. And there are a lot of people who believe that, the council is working against them. And somehow we need to be able to sell that that's not the case. I think that as a councillor I would try to be available. And as a candidate, I've visited Oropi and the various both in the east and west Kaimai. I think we need to be very open and not be doing this little as possible behind closed doors. I like Rodney Joyce's be humble, improve communications and build community boards. The other thing we should do is aggressively manage rates. We need to focus on the essentials, we need to focus on efficiency, we need to manage expectations, and we need to ensure that our financial management of the council is closely controlled and managed by the councillors.
Right. Now move on to the next question. We've already covered it with the mayors, but you've got 3 votes, he's got 1 vote, so we need to know where you stand on having a rates cap. I don't want a long speech, I just want to know, are you in favour of a rates cap and what should it be? So I'll start with Tracy again. Keep it brief.
So with the Taxpayers Union certificate, I didn't tick number 1, I took 2 and 3. Number 1 being the rates cap, because I didn't think it was specific enough. It didn't talk about whether they were talking about CPI or CGI, which we've mentioned already. I also don't believe in committing to something like that without talking to the community first. At the end of the day, it is about understanding what the compromises and the trade-offs would have to be if that was the case and we were to limit it to a certain number in terms of percentage. And the problem with that is our levels of service would obviously have to be decreased in order to maintain that. So it's a conversation really before you actually commit to that sort of thing, in my view.
Thanks, Tracy. Rates and rate increases are a tricky issue, and they're often not well understood. After COVID, the cost for the roading budget for council rose $10 million per year, just to stay in the same place. Not to seal more roads, not to get better roads, just to do what we've been doing up to that point. $10 million in the council budget is a 10% rate increase. So, you either have to pay for it, or you have to, as Tracy said, reduce the service. It's not really that a simple answer that you just say, yeah, we're going to stick at that number and be done with it.
I've listened to many people in our community, and they have all said they cannot afford to pay the rates. And so the number 1 thing is to commit to a level of inflation and plus population growth. I'm prepared to commit to that because we cannot afford, we've doubled our staff, we've doubled our rates, and we're projected to double them again, so something has to give. And that's why there is a need for a review. When you're a Kaimai ward councillor or the mayor, you have to be able to look and see what our staff levels are, how efficient are we, because you can't double the staff and expect that you can have your costs remain the same. And so I'm committed to that, sir, and I'm happy to stand by it. In a leadership role, it makes it much easier. So you need to vote for me.
Even I might vote for you, mate. You never know. I quote from Brad Olsen. Bridges are 38% more expensive to build over the last 3 years. That's 12.5% per year. Sewage systems are 30% more expensive. That's 10% per year. Roads and water supply systems are around 27% more. That's 9% per annum. I don't mind keeping to the local body cost index because that takes into account concrete and bridges and all of those services but actually it's got little to do with the price of milk. So I'm not sure that the CPI is the right index, but I do think we should have some controls over how much we spend on our services. Or else we're going to have to do, we're going to have to lower the service or the quality of the services that we're providing. We're going to have to procure better, get more stuff for our money, and our systems and processes have to be really efficient within council to make sure that we are optimising what we're spending.
I didn't sign the pledge. Now, the reason I didn't sign the pledge is I'm not going to make a commitment to something that I don't at this stage know that I can actually bring to fruition. I believe that we need to definitely control what we're doing with rates, and we need to keep them down and the increases sustainable, because the cost of living and to be able to afford rates. The biggest challenge is that at the moment the council uses two mechanisms to increase your rates. They'll turn around and say, oh, we're only putting up your rates by 6%, but you'll get new capital valuations. Okay, so they're only actually saying they're increasing it by 6%, or even by any cap, but they can actually do a revaluation of your property and say it's gone up. And therefore, you actually get hit. Technically, yes, they've only moved their mechanisms by X amount, but they can come in the back door. My goal would be is we need to control rates, and it needs to be a conversation, as has been said by many, a conversation with our communities of what they see as the core and absolute priority things that need to be done, what are the nice to haves, and what we can now stop doing. But that's the only way that we can control them. And having worked in the commercial side, I'm very good with numbers in that respect, and I'm very good at convincing people to lower their prices.
When we talk about rates caps, it's a matter that's now on the table in terms of the local government systems improvement bill. There's a couple of other things in there, like increased transparency and making sure council officers make available to the elected members the information they're entitled to get. It's an interesting bill. My overall concern is, I think we'd get our rates down a lot more if actually central government stuck to their job and let us get on with ours. I mean, I think a lot of the costs that are imposed on us by central government, and then they tell us we need to get our costs down. So that's an issue that I think is important to think about. As to a rates cap, I'm very much in favour of making sure our rates remain affordable and sustainable. I agree with John Holliott's comments about that whole issue. You've got to have a very holistic, total system, look at what you want and what you don't want and what you're prepared to put up with. The fact that the annual plan said that the council wasn't going to do any road repairs to save a few bob and keep road is mindless, because tomorrow when they have to fix that road, it's going to cost them 3 times as much. It's illusory. Let's be realistic. If you want to, you've got to pay the price to get what you want to live in a first world nation. Costs money, everything does. It's a sad fact of life. I don't like it any more than you do. We've got to be realistic, keep those rates at a sustainable level, and make sure we're able to live the life that we all want to live, which costs a hell of a lot of money.
I'm all for keeping rates affordable. As the son of a mother who owns our own home, it can be quite a struggle with inflation. So I haven't signed any pledges either. I understand that with infrastructure and our waters and amalgamating with other councils, that's going to play a big part in rate increase or declines, or however that looks, and leverage. So yeah, I'm all for keeping rates as low as possible.
When we talk about a rate increase for the Western Bay, we talk about pushing all 24,000 properties together and treat them as one. And if it was 100 million, it might be 104 million we charge. If it was 100 million and it goes up 2%, next year we collect 102 million on those same 24,000 properties, except for the ones that increase, so we take them out because that's not quite comparing apples with apples. Next year's rates are going to be based on new valuations. We've seen this examples in Auckland, 5.6% rate increase, but those guys who own developable or future developable land in the Rodney district are facing 30% rates increase this year. So next year we're going to have a wide disparity. Obviously, we've heard about the plight of the avocado orchards. We're selling part of our orchard to build you another roundabout. Just when you've finished Omokoroa, guess what's happening down at Snodgrass Road and Pori Road? Pori Road's getting moved over to my dear old 87-year-old mum's house. and you're going to have another roundabout to negotiate for years and years. The real estate agents, we're looking to buy land currently. The real estate agents tell me avocado orchards are worth less than bare land. There's a cost to chop down the trees and grind out the stumps. It's a cruel fact. If anyone has an avocado grower in the room, I apologise to you, but you're likely going to get a rates decrease next year because your property values are going to plummet. Last week, while the Ames games were on, a friend of mine, who's a principal in Wellington, came up, and of course he had to talk rates when he's staying with me. His house looking out over the waterfront in Wellington was $2.3 million. New valuations came out $1.6 million. So, you know, it's happening all over the place. My son's place has dropped by $100,000 in Tauranga City, so I expect probably like for like those $1 million properties in Omokoroa are going to be $900,000 next year. I don't know, I'm not a valuer. That's set by people outside of our realm. But that's the way rates fall. So next year it's going to be chaos because you're going to combine whatever we can sneak into the rate, or the kids, sorry, preempting my success in 2 weeks' time. Whoever's elected and sets the rates for next year, it's going to be whatever they can put on top to keep up with inflation, plus then the impact of the revaluation. Sorry, I've talked too long again for me.
Right, thank you for that.
I think we should make the Crown pay rates. You know, on the properties they charge us a hell of a lot of GST. Let's simply pay a few rates and keep the rest of our costs.
Okay, I want to move on pretty quickly. The next question is, same as the mayoral candidate's got, about do you favour keeping the Maori wards? I don't want you to speak to it. Just once again, if you're in favour of keeping a Maori ward, raise your hand. If you're opposed to keeping Maori ward, raise your hand. So there you have it. You can all see what the views of the councillors are, or the candidates are. That brings to an end the Kaimai ward part. Bear in mind, you've got 3 votes.
They're all clapping because I'm not
Right. Well, there are 3 candidates. We've got 22 actually coming up tonight, so it shouldn't take it too long. So, you know the rules. You get 2 minutes to introduce yourself, and Carl, you can go first, of course, and tell us why those on the mountain should vote for you.
Okay, Papa. Tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou e tāpuni. Tēnei te tangi hoki rā kia koutou e whānaki te tāngata e hina atu ki roto i te moana. Whihia tēnei rā o reira tangi atu kia koutou. I just gave a little bit of acknowledgement and a mihi to your community concerning the person that was found in the water this morning. So, alright, Colin Bidwell is my name. Not raised in Te Puna all of my years, but have raised my own family, 6 children, my lovely partners here, and our 13 Omokoroa. So from Te Puna, grew up in my early years in Wellington, Rotorua, Hamilton, following my father around, who was the chief area traffic manager of New Zealand Railways. So I had an interesting political upbringing in Wellington City. Moved home, I think it was in the 3rd form. Didn't like school. Unlike most of the candidates, I don't have 10 degrees. My degree is life skills, experience, knowledge, and I expect the truth. Both of those things are apparently dangerous, so I think that's part of my reputation. But yeah, work-wise, every cobblestone in Hamilton Main Street was laid by me, tile cobblestones. Same in Tauranga City, and the streets laid by myself and have never come apart. But spent most of my career representing Māori across the country long-term service for the iwi in Ngāti Ranginui, like my relation here, and for the hapu Piriraga.
Kia ora, Carlton. Again, Swari Burrell from Whakamarama. Carlton and I share the same eponymous ancestry of being French Māori. On my mother's side, I'm also Samoan. What do you get from someone who belongs to a dynasty of 125 years on the same road, in the same street, in the same area? What you get is connection, what you get is courage, and what you get is tenacity of purpose. So I've seen the streets come, I've seen the lights come, I've seen the houses come, and you know what? None of it actually broke us. We're still fine in Whakamarama. God bless Whakamarama. But, you know, and again, the developments and the things that happen, those are the natural swing of life, right? So we have to, as humans, agree to try and find a way to build a community that includes everyone. And I know that from a lived experience. I like to drop the joke about water management because we're still on tank water on Ross Road. So I have lived experience and intergenerational lived experience of water management. So if you want someone who really cares about the water, vote people who are on tank water. Kia ora.
Oh, thank you. Right, questions? What is your understanding of the Treaty of Waitangi's role in council decision making? Carlton.
I think that's debate for a whole night. What I know about the treaty is everything. All of my government experience, I suppose, representation roles that I've had on 3 councils, the values are based on treaty principles. Treaty principles are what a lot of New Zealanders debating at this point in time, privilege to Māori. Nothing is a privilege to Māori under legislation. It's a right derived from the Treaty of Waitangi. I just want the country and David Seymour to get that right. And when you consider that the treaty guaranteed Māori the ownership, continued ownership of land, water, their mountains, their language, everything that they possessed, and then the Crown, by its own admittance, stole all of the above. And what Māori get as treaty principles and legislative rights, I don't understand how people can think they are a privilege to Māori. It's a little bit about what I know about the treaty.
To my credit, I attended New Zealand's most premier university, the University of Auckland. My highest degree is a postgraduate diploma in political science, so I'm all but PhD. And I say that because I grew up and I did papers from Andrew Sharp and people who are really clear on what it means to how a country is born. So for those who aren't up on it, you can conquest, you can create a country through conquest, you can create a country through a constitution. So for me, Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the right for Māori representation is a constitutional one, and it is as constitutional as the right for freedom of speech and to bear arms in the United States. When New Zealand understands that as a country, when it comes to its own understanding and acceptance that we are a country created through a constitution, things will settle down. Thank you. It means like the lawyers are making money out of laws. Thanks.
If you are elected to council as a Maori Ward councillor, how do you think that more meaningful and effective partnerships with hapu and iwi can be achieved? We'll start with Sri this time.
The same way that you do with any community, as you engage with the right people for the right reasons and in the right way. So we just came after the community boards. The way you engage in the fight in that community board, those people want to be recognised, those people want to be important. It's the same for Māori. So again, it's about having people who can handle or facilitate community engagement respectfully and have the integrity and competence to do the process right from the beginning to the end rather than falling off somewhere in the middle and never coming back to the table.
Well, for me, a true treaty-based partnership is not an advisory committee. You've got a Māori forum at both district councils. They call them partnership forums, but a partnership starts at co-decision making. So that's what the value, I think, straight away the Māori ward seat adds to the council. They don't have any true form of partnership with Māori in any other way, shape or form. So that's how I think the seat adds value to
Right. Final question. Is the council doing enough to respect and protect the Waitahu and other culturally significant sites in the district? Who wants to start?
I'm not going to beg the council about that. Just to mention the fact that 90% of the reserves in the area are significant cultural sites. They were actually reserved by Historic Places Trust, the likes of the Department of Conservation and local iwi, making an agreement, not by the district council. Yes, the council has maintained as much of those cultural sites as they can. Unfortunately, your biggest sub-regional parks don't have a dedicated, or ones that are culturally significant sites don't have a dedicated rate, like other regional parks and sub-regional parks.
Culturally significant sites. The most culturally significant site is my personhood. So it is me, it is my presence, it is my connection to the place that I belong in, that I have belonged for 125 years. So it's about engaging respectfully with that. The first, and I believe only, because I don't believe we will keep the Māori ward, because the Western Bay is the home of the Holson's Pledge. The first, and maybe only, Whakakaudu Māori ward person will be a Dinsdale, a Burrell, or a Bidwa. That is what it is. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that. It's the first time we've had speakers for a Maori ward, so
we appreciate it.
It's all new to us, so thank you for coming and here tonight.
It's a little bit unfortunate that we weren't asked the same questions as the other candidates. Because I'd just like to point out, you might read Blizzard News, which quoted me by saying, did you realise that if one of us gets into council, our first liability is to protect the interest of your community, whether you're Māori or not? We've got a lot of knowledge around those questions that were asked of others.
You want to hear the question that I didn't ask, I thought we were running over time, maybe you want to answer. If elected to council, do you see yourself as only representing Maori interests, or are you prepared to represent the interests of the whole community?
More than prepared, because I've done a lot of work, I've spent 30 years working on local and central government, more than prepared, and have a history of representing the whole community. And that's your first liability. Legal liability under the Local Government Act is to represent the whole community. And that's a bigger job for us as candidates than any other ward, because this Māori ward goes the whole length of the Western Bay. So our legal liability is to protect all of the communities first in the whole of the Western Bay.
I'm just going to echo my same sentiment, right? So the first and only Māori ward for the Western Bay Council will be a Dinsdale, a Burrell from Calvados up at Normandy, North France, or a Bidwa from one village over, just over the road, but I'm not actually. Anyway, they will be French Māori. I'm not sure what the Dinsdales are. Are they Irish? Well, who's the Dinsdale? Well, they're Irish? We'll put them in the Irish camp. But your first Māori ward will, Wakako will be French Māori or Irish Māori. Thanks. Sorry if it sounds Irish.
Right, thank you. And the next we want the Omokoroa Community Board candidates. There's 3 of them. Right, well, this time it's somewhat different than what it was 2 years ago when we had just a Omokoroa Community Board with 4 members. This time around we've got a much larger community board in terms of area, and we just get 2 members from Omokoroa out of the 6-member community board. So we've got 3 candidates, 2 positions. So we're going to ask Murray at that end, because he hasn't spoken yet tonight, to introduce himself. 2 minutes. Tell us why we should vote for you. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm actually a Mayor. I'm one-eyed Cantab. I'm born and bred in Christchurch. Both my parents were involved in the community. My mother, for her community service, set it up with QSM, and that was instilled in our family. I've been involved in community organisations like cystic fibrosis, neighbourhood support, civil defence. I'm a qualified hockey umpire to the New Zealand standard, and I've been chair of the Canterbury Hockey Umpires Association. I've also been involved in New Zealand Hockey Umpires, and also we've been coaching when I'm in Wellington. Our children got brought up, our 4 children got brought up in Wellington, and we spent about 25 years there. Communication is the name of the game. It's making sure that you actually understand what the other person is saying to you. And so when you understand that, then you can actually have a decent conversation and then get the facts right.
Alan.
Okay, my name's Alan Hughes. I have a vision. That vision is that the community works together, this community works together, and with the council to make this a great place to live. I know I have the skills and experience to work with people from all persuasions to work towards and achieve that vision. Now, community service is central to who I am. I'm Deputy Chair of the Community Board. I'm Team Leader of the Omokoroa Community Response Team. I'm a JP and an active membership member. I've been a mediator of hundreds of employment disputes during a major part of my career. I have also led HR and lead industrial relations negotiator in the health sector in a large health board of about 3,500 staff while we were going through a major crisis, and also many similar roles. I want to mention the areas I have or I am working on my community board role. I made written and in-person submissions to the Mayor and all councillors challenging the proposed rate increases for the Western Bay. To me, these increases were and are unsustainable and unfair. Sometimes I deal with confidential matters involving the community and the council. I'm working with the community to address safety and noise concerns. It's an issue happening at present. I'm facilitating the installation of a litter bin adjacent to the village shopping centre. I know that's very important for the shopping centre that people go through there. I'm the communication link between the community board and the community emergency response team and the community policing group. I guide individuals or organisations down the council's requests, concerns or complaints path, or I represent their interests. I have a very strong commitment to finding the best solutions in the communities that I work with. Thank you for your time.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris Dever. No, here we go again. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm on record for supporting the new structure for a community board. I think it's very important that everybody in the Kaimai ward has a fair say. And I spoke before about trying to improve the trust and stuff and communications with the council. And I think community boards are the way to do that. I've been the chair of the community board for the last 12 months. I've had great support from Alan and the councillors that were assigned to the board. I think you should. I'm passionate about this community, and I really do believe that the community board has the ability to be able to still reflect the needs of this community and to actually get things done. Councillor Granger did his final report for the triennium in the Lizard, and there's a list of things that the community board has managed to achieve over that time. I can only hope to claim the last 12 months worth of those. But look, I'm passionate about the community board. I think the community board is effective. I want it to be a much more of a vehicle for people in Omokoroa to be able to communicate with council. And I'd like to see I'd like to see an improvement the other way around as well. I think one of the things that I find at the moment is that we, in fact, as a community board, are not aware of some of the things that are going on within our community. And I'd like to see that fixed.
All right, thank you. Time for a question or two. What do you see as the main issues facing Omokoroa that you want the incoming council to address? And we'll start with Alan this time.
I think the major issue is building the relationship between the council and the community, and that's a role that the community board will have a central role in doing. We are the roles and purpose of the community board is to represent and act as an advocate for the interests of this community. And really that's establishing our relationship, the strength of our relationship with the council, so that they listen to what the community has to say. I know from my own experience in, say, the industrial relations area, leading that role in a large health board, and a health board had shortly after it started with a $70 million deficit, and huge distance between senior management in the health board and staff in the health board. It's about rebuilding those relationships, strengthening those relationships. And if we can do that within this community, then it will work to the community's advantage, it will work to the council's advantage. Thank you.
What do you see as the main issues facing Omokoroa that you want the incoming council to address?
One of the main issues I see is that it's about communication. You talk to council employees, and why do you need to consult the community? It's a two-way street, and this new community board is going to be so big in distance that the community board members are actually going to have to do a lot more work than what they've done before. And it comes back to communicating with the council and through the council, and making sure that the resident views are actually listened to.
I sort of following on from Murray's comments, really. This new community board, first of all, it includes some areas of the Kaimai ward that at the moment don't have a community board, don't know how one operates, openly ask me questions about how do we communicate with council. There's going to be a lot of education, there's going to need to be a lot of strong leadership from whoever chairs that community board to be able to bring that all together and decide how we're going to manage the difference between an urban community like Omokoroa and Upper Kaimai. That's going to be really hard work, and the community board probably can't do that on their own. the council is going to need, it's going to need strong support from council to make that effective changeover. If council, I think also there will need to be more delegation from council to those community boards to actually give them some muscle in life, if you like, some ability to be able to make things change and to be able to, even if they're not going to be able to deliver stuff themselves, but at least be able to significantly influence the decisions made at the council table.
Thank you. Well, the next question sort of follows on a little bit from what Chris started talking about. The Local Government Commission, when it is established the enlarged new community board, it's the Omokoroa Kaimai Ward Community Board, said that they want to see this new community board working more closely with local resident associations. I know that there is one here, but the resident associations in the rest of the Kaimai Ward have never had the experience of a community board, but you have. So how are you going to see that this community board is with particularly the Omokoroa Resident Association?
Okay. Residents and ratepayers associations are in place in these other things, or Tapuna, what's the Tapuna one called? And you know, they are really important. One of the things that hasn't worked very well here, and I'm being a critic of this before, is that we haven't had a very good relationship between our community board and the local Omokoroa Ratepayers and Residents Association. But I would like to see that repaired. I saw that, Tracy. I'd like to see that repaired, and I think that if there are ratepayer groups, then their channel to get heard should be through their community boards. And I think that's really one of the strengths of having community boards in these other subdivisions of the Kaimai Ward.
The Residents and Ratepayers Association is an important part of this community. It represents a large group of people in this community, and therefore it's something that is important to listen to the issues and concerns that are raised. It does have, there are other groups in the community as well. It's an obligation for the council to have connection with all parts of the community. Some of those may have a lesser voice, some may have a stronger voice, but it's still important that there is engagement with all those parts, because the community board is acting for the whole community, and certainly ratepayer represents a major part of that community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm quite aware of the distance that's between the Omokoroa Ratepayers Association and the board. Please invite me to your next meeting. I'll definitely come. There is a lot of other groups in the community, and I think with the greater size of the community board area, that the community board members will need to travel to those meetings throughout the area. There is environmental meetings in places that fall through the community. There are other interest groups, and we need to feel the pulse of the community to actually understand what's going on, so it can be fed back through to the councillors. It's important that we do listen to what the Ratepayers Association are looking at and their concerns. We just need to make sure that we are connecting with the people, and that means that the new community board members will have to work a lot harder and move a lot further to actually listen and be at meetings, outside of the normal meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll call it quits at that point. I think we've heard from the three candidates and we've all given pretty good answers. The next we want to hear from is the Ratepayers Regional Council. Four candidates for two positions to represent the Western Ratepayers on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. Now, the Western Bay of Plenty covers Tauranga and the Western Bay of Plenty District Council area. So you've got 2 minutes to tell us who you are and why we should vote for you. So I'll start at the far end this time.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start by turning that on. And before I do speak, I am standing in the Māori ward of the Regional Council for Mayoralty. So, would you like me here now, or would you like me here
Well,
next?
I'll ask you if there are any other candidates from the Maori ward.
No, there isn't
Okay.
tonight here.
Okay, we'll combine them in one for this.
All right.
I might have a different question for you for the rest of them.
So good evening everyone, I'm Ange Webster. I'm born and bred in Matapiti, which is just up the road from Mayfair. I'm a mother of 7. I have grandchildren as well, and they range in age, my children, from 31 to 16. Went to Matapiti Primary, Mount Intermediate, Mount College. I took myself off to the very best university in the country, Otago University. I studied phys ed down there. I came back home. I played rugby for the Bay of Plenty for the next 10 years. And some of our local club rooms, I got injured in that game and I had to retrain, so I did. And I entered a field that brought me alongside Alan Hughes. So I also studied in industrial relations and human resource management and dispute resolution. That was at a time, well, actually when the Employment Relations Act came into power. So that is my background at that time. And I then met my husband and left my career to the side and raised my children. I stayed home with my children. I went to play centre with them. Through different options in schooling. And when my youngest was 5, I joined them in school. I retrained, so I have a postgraduate diploma in teaching as well. All of those experiences and knowledges have helped me to stand today. I've spent the better part of the last 10 years working in governance. As a governance advisor for our local schools, well, not only our local schools, Alan and I advise schools around the whole country on their employment and governance obligations, schools, principals, and the thing about schools is that they are exactly what's happening in the community. It happens in the schools, and so I've got a lot of experience in dealing with very complex matters for all people. Thank you.
Remind you that, is it Ange Webster? Yeah, that she's standing for the Maori constituency of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. And there are 3 candidates, and she's the only one who's come tonight. The next 2 candidates are standing for the Western Bay of Plenty constituency of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council. So they're not in competition with Ange. They're in a different seat. So, John Scrimger.
Good evening, everybody. Great to see you all here, and thank you for coming out and having the patience to sit and listen to all us people. My name's John Scrimger, and together with my wife Margaret, we've lived and farmed east of Te Puke for the last 45 years. We raised our family there, and they've scattered far and wide and produced 7 great grandchildren for us. I have quite a long history of community service and also industry good organisations in our farming and orcharding industries. And more recently, I'm just completing 12 years as a Makatū Puke Ward Councillor for Western Bay of Plenty, including 6 of those years as Deputy Mayor. I have, as part of that process, completed a RMA Commissioner's course and also hold a Chair's endorsement with that, enabling me to chair hearings and the like. So but those are the experiences that I believe equip me well to serve as a regional councillor. As to the regional council, I think one of the immediate things in this time of great change that the regional council needs to do is to come to grips with the proposed changes to the RMA and the new laws that come into effect there, and what those mean and what the impacts are on the work of regional council. I'm also very aware of the investments that regional council holds through Quayside Holdings, and I believe it's very important that we protect and enhance those investments. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Ken.
Well, I don't think I need this. Good evening, my name
You do need it.
Good evening, and congratulations on your patience, forbearance and tolerance. It's been a long evening, and I guess coming at the end's quite difficult. Apologies for my lateness this evening at the meeting. I attended the meeting of the Avocado Growers Association, Kaimai, the devastation. You may not realise that some of them have lost 80-90% of their crop on the ground, destroyed, no income this year, so there's some real hardship immediately in our region. I'm a sitting member on the Regional Council, one of two current. Jane Nees is the other one representing Western Bay. Jane's retiring this year, this election, after 18 years of service to the region. And Doug Leader, who's the current chairman of the Regional Council, is also stepping down. So I'm seeking re-election. A number of my colleagues have also asked me to put my hand up to chair the Regional Council, which I said I will, but that will be depending on if I get re-elected. Jenny and I, my wife, we live in Kaimai Base here in Omokoroa. I've been chairman of the Omokoroa Golf Club since 2021. That's one of my passions. I might invest time in the future for that. I chair the rivers and drainage schemes for the Regional Council. That's for the Rangataiki, the Kaituna, the Waiweka. I had a meeting with both of you this morning. In fact, I started, my first meeting was at Ratepayers this morning. So it's quite a big region, and it goes right to East Cape. So I'm very much in favour of the reforms that are needed. The model, the local government model is broken. It's the function, form and funding of local government needs a major review, and we're going to see some very big changes.
Have I got this technology working? Yep. Good, okay. Thanks for coming along tonight. I admire you folks sitting through it all, and you're very motivated, and we need the rest of the community to have your level of motivation. I can't do much justice in 2 minutes, so please go to the townoftheresidents.nz website. There's a lot more information on us candidates there, and you'll get our views on things. My name is Neil Parker. I'm a lifetime Bay of Plenty resident from a farming family. Having spent almost my entire life working with the land, from Te Puna in the west to Edgecombe in the east, Te Puke, Makatu and Oroki for the last 27 years, I am familiar with land and management issues throughout the Bay. If I was elected, my major focus would be as follows: a back-to-basics focus on core services implemented with a common-sense, value-orientated approach. Financial discipline and ensuring our ratepayers are receiving value for money. Ensuring that the Bay of Plenty Regional Council works constructively with landowners and not in an adversarial manner. We need their cooperation. I oppose co-governance on the basis that I consider it anti-democratic and it adds an extra layer of cost and delay. So that is why I'm not a supporter of that. I believe that many of you would prefer small, efficient local government which confines its activities to those clearly mandated by ratepayers. Now that's an oxymoron, efficient local government, in fact efficient government of any sort. But anyway, the smaller it is, the less stuff they can wreck, okay? So that's really right. So I have served on numerous committees and boards over the years of both a commercial and community nature, some in the capacity of chairman. and therefore believe I am well placed to make a meaningful contribution on your behalf at the Ratepayers Regional Council. Seems like I haven't completely used all my time, so my experience does include farming, horticulture, education, business mentorship, and a variety of investment activity. Thank you.
Right, a few questions, and if not part of these questions, I'll come to you with a specific one for you. What do you see as your top priorities if you get elected to the regional council? I'll start with John again.
Well, as I said in my speech, I think the most important thing in this time of change is for regional council to come to grips with what proposed changes from central government are, and the impacts of that, what the workload is, and what the responsibilities, is the staffing level correct then for what responsibilities remain, those sort of things. I also think there's, well, I touched on the investment income, but allied to that is rates, of course, is a critical component of keeping rates and rate increases to the lowest possible level. I think there's a lot of work can be done. There's a lot of great community and catchment organisations doing great work in the community, but I think there can be greater coordination of those efforts and more efficient resourcing of those. And so I think there's considerable work that can be done there. Depends how far you want to go.
I think there's a huge scope for a sort of a culture reset, is my view. I think purpose and function are critical to any organisation, and I believe the regional council will be a lot sharper in that regard. There's some very important functions that are done currently by the regional council, but you've got to put it in that lens and the framework of a total change, because there's no good thinking in terms of the existing entities. And with this function, form and funding review, it should always be function before form. Always not going to rush out and restructure, amalgamate. It's nonsense. You've got to sort out what the core functions are, what you should be doing, more particularly what you shouldn't be doing. Focus on those ones that you should be doing, and the form will fall into shape. And that's where I think the government's leading it, and it's going to take 3 to 5 years for it to shake down. But in 3 years' time, local government as we know it today will look quite differently. And I'm quite excited to be part of that change, so I look forward to it.
I believe that we are grossly over-regulated, and that partly is, a lot of it is driven by central government. If you could see the amount of regulation that they churn out, it would make you feel ill. Yeah, so you're grossly over-regulated, and the central government is responsible for an awful lot of that, and then where they don't do enough, local government pick it up themselves and a whole lot more. And the problem with that is it creates a heap of expense, and it creates a heap of delay, which you all ultimately pay for. So to me, this place to start for BOP Regional Council is sort of its own bureaucracy. Its own personnel costs 60 million. That's an awful lot. I think they need to start there, but I also think the council has a major job, and all councils, not just regional. I actually think they need to really be pushing back on central government about the regulation that's heaped on them. Why have we got the regulation? To what purpose does it serve? Because it's really binding up red tape, and it limits what council can do in terms of, reining in their own bureaucracy. So, yeah, bureaucracy, wind it back. That's where I'm coming from. Oh, public transport, regional council, those big empty yellow buses, now that's ridiculous. That needs sorting out. There's another 50 million right there. So to me, that's low-hanging fruit as well.
I think the next question we should start with Ken.
Yes, it is.
Do you think that the BOP Regional Council has a future? Or should their functions be taken over by the local councils?
I think it's foolish to talk about sort of existing entities when we're entering into the type of reforms we're talking about, because this sort of patch protection of district council, city council, region council, it's a silly argument actually, because if you really think about greenfields and water's done well being spun off, it's just sort of made it even more likely for significant change. So it's actually an opportunity to have a greenfield think of what do we do at the local level, the regional level, the national level. And that's the point. A lot of people always think it's a binary decision between centralism and localism. It's not. You actually need both. You need them both in partnership. And that's what we haven't done well. And we've got to get away from this petty parochial patch protection. I think sort of the tension between Western Bay and Tauranga City is just so foolish. I mean, it's just so counterproductive. So this will be an opportunity to rise above that and get the community level, the local level, the district level, the regional and the national level all linked up, functioning a lot more efficiently.
The question is, do you think that the Bay of Plenty Regional Council has a future? Or should their functions be taken over by the local councils in the Bay of Plenty?
Well, I'm certainly not going to suggest their functions be taken over. But I think I'm probably fairly similar to Ken, that the first thing that's been worked out is what the responsibilities of council is in the community. And then you work out how council should be formed around that. And so rather than arguing first about how they're formed, first thing is to work out what their responsibilities are and then build a structure around that. And it could be very different to what we see today.
I'm probably relatively indifferent on that matter, in the sense of there was life before regional councils, and I'm sure there'll be life afterwards. What I'd really like to see, though, is simply the degree that we can put responsibility back to a much more local level, the people themselves making the decisions as much as they can, and the more we can trim back all forms of council, the better I like it. Regional council, as far as I'm concerned, their responsibilities lie around environmental protection and working with landowners. Private landowners are the ones that are going to have the greatest impact on how well the environment fares. So you better work cooperatively with those guys, because they're going to have the biggest impact as to how it all pans out. So yeah, I just really would like to see much more devolution back to the individual and smaller groups as possible, individual catchment groups as opposed to some big bureaucracy in some far-flung place. Yeah, just take as much responsibility out of government as possible.
Right, well, question. What role should the regional council play in regard to managing stormwater and flood risk in the Bay of Plenty? So we'll start with John this time.
Well, stormwater and flood risk to me are two quite different issues. I guess it's depending on what you mean by flood risk. I think that flood risk is dealing with the entities Ken talked about in terms of our major rivers and those sort of things. Whereas stormwater I see as more a localised issue in terms of the communities and built-up areas. And certainly I don't, while we are in this state of play, unless there's some significant change, I don't see why you'd want to take that away from district councils, whose assets play a big part in creating that stormwater. So, does that answer your question?
I'll let the voters decide that.
I don't understand why the questions can't also go through to Ange. No, I'm just saying the same questions. Anges are going to be in the same role on a regional council.
Do you want to answer that question as well, Ange?
I certainly would like to. Would you mind repeating the question to me, please?
What role should the regional council play in regard to managing stormwater and flood risk?
My current role is working for the Tauranga City Council Water Services team. My key role there is facilitating engagement on the municipal supply of water. So the current water supply is not as widely thought. It's not only from the Waiari in the east. Actually, all of Tauranga City is supplied by the Waiari Toto streams. That is the current major water supply that we have to our city and then further into the Western Bay. So I have a lens on water. When we talk about flood risk, I certainly think the Regional Council have absolutely got some responsibility in that space. Coastal inundation is also a form of flooding, and we're surrounded by coastal land. When I think about stormwater, we as a whole community have responsibility in that space, whether it's the council and their infrastructure that's impeding the stormwater flow, or whether it's our own use in our own homes and the way we deal with water on our own land. So I think combined, we can all get there right.
The simplest way of looking at it is that it's in the pipe, stormwater, it's the district council, city council. If it's in the natural catchment, if it's the discharge out of the pipe, then it becomes the regional council. And a huge part of our work is protecting communities from floods in the Bay of Plenty. I mentioned those schemes earlier. I'm the chair of those schemes. We have the Ratepayers, it's a huge catchment. It goes right up across the Ngāti Taupo Road. Equally the headwaters of the Whakatane, huge catchment. Rivers like the Motu coming out of the Raukumaras, massive rivers. And of course it's all the farmland too. You're protecting towns like Edgecombe. We had that terrible disaster in 2017 when the town got inundated when the Stop Bank collapsed. We're actually being sued for about $50 million at the moment by an insurance company on that issue. Another story altogether. So huge responsibility, it's very important. A lot of our dairy land is only able because of the stop banks, and it's not just the stormwater and the flood protection, it's also the land drainage. We have massive land drainage schemes in our region.
Very hard to improve on Ken's answer. Flood protection is a major part for the Regional Council, and I've got some direct experience there because I used to farm Mac 2 and we had a flood protection scheme down there. And at Edgecombe, I in fact had big flood pumps right on the end of our farm, and I was the caretaker that looked after them. So that's a major role of the Regional Council, is the flood protection for our productive land. Very, very important, and obviously the fact that those stop banks in Edgecombe weren't quite big enough is sort of suggests that the planning wasn't ideal down there. Yeah. So I would suggest that is an area where the council can do something useful, and that is make sure that they do have adequate infrastructure for flood protection, and it would pay to err on the side of caution in view of the fact that climate change seems to be giving us some slightly more extreme weather events. Nothing more to add, I don't think.
Right. This question I'll get all the candidates, including Ange, to answer. What role should the Regional Council play in coastal erosion protection, which is a particular issue around the Omokoroa? I'll start with Neil this time. We head down that road.
Coastal erosion protection?
Yes.
Well, logically, what the Regional Council should do is pass a law that simply says the wave shouldn't be any higher than 3 metres. I mean, that's obvious, you know, work that out. No, practically, I think you've got to say that Mother Nature is going to be in charge there, and all we can do is prudently observe how it's shaping up, and the smart thing would be to do is to keep people further away from the coast, keep the building platforms up higher, and hope you die before it becomes a big problem.
Shorelines are dynamic, they always have been, and it's really a question of what's the projected future risk and what's the asset width. In some cases it will be managed retreat, that could well be appropriate. And other times you need to go to hard engineering for protection. A good example is the golf course foreshore with a wonderful walkway. They took the sort of the soft option at the start, think we'll try nature's way. Very quickly it didn't work, and it's now up to the district council to come up with a plan of some protection. It doesn't need to be huge, but it probably just needs a low wooden wall or possibly rock protection or big sandbags, something of that nature. But if you don't put that in place, the community lose that incredibly valuable asset, that walkway. It also protects the golf course. I have a fair interest there. So that is important. Not that we should be contributing to it, of course.
We already have.
We already have. Yes, $500,000. You know, that's really the trade-off. And you really got to look at what's the asset. Should you protect it, or do you work with nature and have managed to treat it? It just depends on what you're protecting.
Yes, I believe that an assessment needs to be taken of the risks before any actions are taken. And as Ken has said, I think every situation is different, and so you can't have one hard rule or program that will fit every situation. So you have to think about that. Also have to remember that people purchase properties in their they make all sorts of choices, and there's a thing I was taught about in school called caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. And so we have to be very careful that council doesn't move into the situation of trying to protect people from their own poor choices. And yeah, I think I'll just leave it there.
There's one older than caveat emptor, that don't build your house upon sand.
Okay, Anne's might like to contribute to that question.
Hello. I echo everything that's been said, especially by Ken and John. And I just add to that a responsibility to enable our community to take care of their own coastlines. Because we all enjoy them and we can all participate in that. So there's a whole lot of ways that the community can also be enabled through funding, through the regional council, to ensure that we are taking care of our coastlines.
Well, the next question is for Ange only. You'll be a Maori, potentially if you're elected, a Maori ward councillor in the regional council. So what do you see your role as being in the regional council?
Oh, my key role is to represent everyone in the region, but to bring the voice of my people in that representation. So to make sure that I understand the views of the people I'm representing, and to make sure that I can work well with everyone else's views and the things that are important to them. So I have a key role, that is to represent the voice of my people, but that's to do that alongside the voices of all of the community.
Well, that draws to a conclusion, hearing from our regional council candidates. So just join me in thanking them, and that brings to a conclusion tonight's meeting. So hope you found it worthwhile and help you with your decision making when you fill out your voting papers over the next week or so. Thank you for coming.